Hey everyone, welcome back to Tin Max. I am Tin of Tin and Max, and you might have been able to guess that I am a pretty big fan of Batman. I have loved the character ever since I was a wee lad. There was a period of time where I actually introduced myself to people as Batman, so I like the character, is what I'm getting at. And so naturally, when the new Batman movie comes out, I get pretty excited. I was especially excited for this one because Matt Reeves has been knocking it out of the park in his career so far. It looked like a lot more like a comic book accurate version, at least to me, and I was very excited for it. And yeah, we're gonna talk about it. This is kind of a review slash reaction type thing, just giving my thoughts about it. And yeah, I'm gonna do a non spoiler thing first, and kind of like go over the stuff that isn't spoilers, obviously, and then I will give you a fair warning, and then spoilers. So hey, let's start. I liked it. I liked it a lot. I think this is for me the definitive live action Batman movie as of now so far. And I'll get into why. Um First of all, the movie looks really good. It is really well shot. The cinematography is it blends so perfectly with the score. The score is immaculate. I love the new theme for the Batman. It was in the trailers. It's so good. Just the way the whole movie sounds and looks, it really adds to like the feel of like the like darkness and corruption that is Gotham City. It's really impeccably well done. There are some just honestly absolutely gorgeous shots. Nothing feels plain or basic. I really liked how it looked. Is what I'm getting at. In terms of action, it isn't pretty action packed movie. It definitely balances out well with like the non action elements and kind of the mystery element of the story. But I do like the action moments we get from this Batman. I would say that this Batman kind of reminds me of John Wick, weirdly enough. In the sense that like the Batman is still like this unstoppable force and he will kick your ass. But also he's still human beneath all that, you know? Like you can get your hits in. He does take some gnarly hits in this movie. He doesn't feel invincible, which I thought would be kind of hard to do with like it's you see it in the trailer, but the suit's basically bulletproof. And it does in some sense take away from like the gravity of like the action scenes. He still takes hits. So it kind of offsets it. In terms of acting, I think the cast was really well put together. The casting was fantastic. I think there was nobody really stood out to me as like miscast or acting bad. You know what I mean? Jeffrey Wright, he kills it as Gordon. It's a tough act to follow up. Whoever played him in, oh god, The Dark Knight. People are gonna yell at me for forgetting his name. You know the guy who played him in the Dark Knight trilogy. He was really good too, and Jeffrey Wright is also really good. Not gonna say one's better than the other, but I really like them both. I want to see more of that character. I hope they do more with him in the future. If he's part of that Gotham PD HBO Max spinoff, that'd be sweet. I think he is. I don't remember. Zoe Kravitz. I probably butchered that. She's my favorite Catwoman for sure. Um, she's the most comic accurate depiction we've seen of the character in any of these movies. She feels like the Selena Kyle you get in like the Tom King run, or a lot like the very modern like Selena Kyle character. This is that brought to life in a really cool way. I love what they do with this character. I'll get a little bit more into like the details of that in spoilers, but she's great. Her and Robert have some killer chemistry. They really play off each other well, and I love that. It really helps sell that whole romance thing because sometimes it can be hard to see Batman, falling for anybody, but like this movie, it feels genuine, and you can see where they're coming from when they get attracted to each other. Alfred is really good. Oh my god, why can't I think of his name? Gollum, the guy who plays Gollum, Andy Serkis. He's good as Alfred. My only problem with it, and it's not reflecting on the action, the actor, or the direction for the characters. We just don't see a lot of him in this movie. He's not in it that much, which was kind of a bummer. But when he is there, it is good. He definitely feels more of like the kind of younger, I served in the military for most of my life kind of Alfred. Kind of like the one you get on Gotham, but better because it's not Gotham. Penguin and Riddler both knock it out of the park. Um, they're both fantastic. Penguin, he's like the perfect version of like the mob boss Penguin we see a lot in like the comics and stuff. Danny DeVito is good as the Penguin, but he's not really the same as the Penguin you get in the comics. And Colin Farrell, in a masterful like showcase of makeup design and whatever, he kills it as Penguin. I love it a lot, and I hope again this is another character I hope we get to see a lot more of if this series continues because he has a lot of potential. Riddler is an interesting one because character wise he's kind of a departure from the comic books, which is probably a good thing because Riddler's, look, this is just my opinion, Riddler is so lame, and this version of Riddler wasn't. I liked him. I'll get more into why in spoilers, but hey, they're both great versions of characters. Next, we have Battenbat himself, Robert Edward Cullen. This might be controversial. I don't know. I think he's my favorite live action Batman. They've all brought different things to the table and done certain things really well. Like, for example, Christian Bale, I think, absolutely killed it as Bruce Wayne. But his Batman leaves a lot to be desired in my mind. Maybe it's mostly the voice. I think there's a lot of other things about like his take on Batman that I didn't love. This one feels like a good combination of the two. He's a great Bruce Wayne and he's a fantastic Batman. And I will put this out there. This is definitely more of a Batman movie than a Bruce Wayne movie. I don't know like minute to minute if it's true, but I feel like he spends more time as Batman than he does as Bruce Wayne, which not something you get a lot in these kinds of movies. And I really like that because it speaks to the character. Overall, the story is really well put together. I feel like it is a murder mystery, like thriller detective thing. Batman actually feels like a detective this time. He's intelligent, he's quick, but he's also still kind of learning and a little bit naive. So pairing him up with the Riddler as a villain for this first movie was just a fantastic idea because of that. It really pushes him forward in ways that I can't talk about. I think the story really comes together well. All the elements, nothing feels forced or kind of slapped in there. It is a very long movie, but none of it is wasted, if that makes sense. The Batmobile, again, it might be my favorite. I was never a big Tumblr fan, gonna be honest. The one from the 80s, completely impractical. The one from Snyder movies, not bad, but he uses it to machine gun people, so, kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. This one is so good. It's that whole scene. You see a little bit of it in trailers, but when he's chasing Penguin, it's awesome. The whole just watch the movie. I don't want to spoil it, but it's the best Batmobile in my opinion. In terms of what could be considered negatives, this movie is not for everybody. Fun fact, not all movies are for everybody. It is long, and you do feel it, especially if you're going to see it in theaters. I had to pee for like an hour and a half during this movie, and I wasn't about to leave and miss some important clue or something. Do keep that in mind. I wouldn't begrudge anyone who wants to wait until they can watch it in the comfort of their own home, and pause when they need to, because I think that is a better way to watch the movie. And I've seen this criticism floating around a lot in critic reviews and whatever. Yeah, it's a bit depressing. It's a bit bleak. It's Batman. he's Batman. He dresses up as a bat because his parents were murdered. It's not always gonna be sunshine and rainbows with this character. If you're expecting like the MCU, like I feel like some of the critics were, it's not that. I do think there was a couple funny moments. Batman is definitely sassy. He's the right amount of sassy, which Batman needs to be. But it's not quips and underlining serious moments with dumb jokes like sometimes like Marvel can be guilty of sometimes. I mean, it doesn't have to be that. I love that this movie doesn't try to fit any kind of mold. It's just doing its own thing, which is something I want to see more from comic book movies. I want things like Thor Ragnarok to exist and things like the Batman to exist. As much as I don't like the Joker because it's not that good, it at least did something different in the comic book genre. I want more stuff like this. So at least give it a shot. It's definitely a certain taste, I think, in some ways. I don't know if any of that made sense. I'm good at this review thing, I think personally. This is, like I think I mentioned earlier, the most comic actor. This is, like I think I mentioned earlier, the most comic accurate version of the character. First of all, he doesn't kill. It's not that hard to have Batman not kill. It's not. Do more of that. I like that. He even has the no gun rule, which is great. I love that. It's a pretty elemental part of the character. To me, it falls kind of perfectly between like the hyper realistic, grounded version of the Nolan movies and kind of the out there gothic version of the Tim Burton movies. It can feel comic booky when it needs to, and it can be grounded in reality when it needs to. It toes that line perfectly. That's why one of the reasons I call this like my favorite Batman movie is because that's what I want from Batman, you know. And this I got it here, so that's pretty cool. I'm gonna go into a sort of spoiler now. It's not groundbreaking. It's not gonna ruin the experience. But if you want to go completely blind, skip ahead a couple seconds. They don't show his parents getting killed. We don't see his origin at all. It kind of does the homecoming thing of just, hey, we're gonna skip all the stuff you've seen before. Here's Batman being Batman, and I think that was a good idea because we don't need that. Again, we all know it's fine. Skip it. Last non-spoiler thing, I think, just a heads up for anyone who is gonna go see it. There is something after the credits, but it is not. It is not a scene. It is not a post-credits scene like you get with a Marvel movie. It's just kind of. It's not worth staying for. I don't really want to go into it. You don't really need to stay for it. Google it later if you're curious. It's not that interesting in my mind. All right, well, that is the end of my non-spoiler section. Overall, I don't think this movie is necessarily perfect. Um, I do have some small criticisms, and maybe I'm just blinded by fanboyness. But I think it is a really well-made film. It's the best of all the worlds. I was trying to do like best of both worlds, but like multiple, whatever. It's the best combination of Batman elements we have. It feels the most pure Batman, if that makes sense. And I really want to see this world move forward and continue. So support it. Go spend money on it. All right, let's do some spoilers. Just kind of stuff I want to talk about that has to do with the spoilers. Good good segue, I think. First thing that really sticks out to me in terms of spoilers territory is this version of Riddler. I feel like if more people, like the more casual audience was more familiar with Hush, this character would be Hush instead of Riddler. Because that's very much the vibe I get from this version of Riddler. Like even the face mask he wears, it reminds me so much of Hush. And I think there's even like a single frame or like a shot where you see the word Hush and it just like popped in my head like, oh my god, I think they're trying to do like a more Hush version of the Riddler while still calling him the Riddler because it's a more recognizable villain. He is very unhinged. He's crazy. He's a little creepy. He's definitely not all there. It's a nice change from kind of the goofy, oh, I just gotta prove I'm smarter than Batman freaking Riddler we get most of the time. And he really serves the story well for being that kind of intellectual challenge for young Batman and solving like the murderer and exposing the conspiracy about I won't get too much into it. What I was saying earlier about this being a great story for Batman, you get a lot of growth for Batman in this movie. He starts out very he's young and angry. He's only been doing this 2 years. He's still very much in that I am doing this for vengeance mindset. I am vengeance. That's like his catchphrase. And throughout the film, in a really cool way, Matt Reeves in this movie is like mastered the showing instead of telling thing. There's moments where the characters aren't, they don't speak, but you know what they feel, which is a testament to the acting and the directing. And because Batman isn't really someone who's just gonna come out and say how he feels and talk about how he feels, Robert Pattinson nails that kind of like, you see him working internally with a lot of what's going on, and you can tell that that's happening. The movie's not going to spell out to you his journey, but you see it happen through the actions he takes and the beats the story goes through. He, throughout the movie, learns that there's more to being Batman than just beating up criminals and putting the fear of God in bad guys. He learns that he needs to be a symbol of hope for the citizens of Gotham, which is why I find it kind of annoying that critics keep calling this movie depressing and bleak, because I think they miss a lot of the points at the end of the movie. And maybe it's a thing where like they just weren't really nailed, like they weren't driven home in the final scenes, but like I feel like the ending is very much about the city coming together and Batman learning that staying in the shadows and being vengeance isn't enough. He also needs to provide hope for Gotham and real change as Bruce Wayne. That's one of the big things happening in this story is he doesn't want a Bruce Wayne. He only wants to Batman, which is why I said earlier he mostly is Batman in this movie. You don't get a lot of Bruce Wayne, and maybe that'll change in the future. I would like to see him kind of learn that he needs the Bruce Wayne persona and that he can do a lot of good with it. Um, I think that's definitely something that'll come for the character in the future based on how this one ends. I think it's the most growth I've noticed in like a Batman movie, except for like with maybe the exception of like the Dark Knight or something. It feels good, man, to see him kind of grow into the hero he is normally. You know what I mean? In terms of Catwoman's story, it is her whole thing is basically ripped straight from the comics. She is Falcone's illegitimate daughter. She, was raised poor and steals, and I really like it. I think they nailed it, and her integration into the story and the overarching plot is just really well done. She nails the kind of like, oh, I'm, you know, kind of on the wrong side of the law, but not necessarily by choice thing. This is the most depth I've seen from Catwoman in any kind of media like this, any kind of, even like the animated stuff. I think this is the best version of Catwoman we have. She feels real in a really unique way, and I really like what they did with the character. I'm sure they'll bring her back because she's fantastic. I definitely want to see more of her. And they're, like I said in the non spoilers part, their dynamic and their chemistry is so good. I think they really nailed the casting for both of them. Overall, the relationships between characters is also really well done. Gordon and Bats teaming up is so fantastic. They work really well together on camera as the characters. They bounce off each other. They make them each other better. They push each other. They trust each other, which is something I love to see. I love that part of the Gordon Bats team like dynamic. Like Gordon trusts Batman, and at the start of this movie, he's already at that point. We don't see Batman earn it. We don't need to see that. He already is there. Gordon has, or Gordon supports him fully, which is good. I love that. And the two actors, Jeffrey Wright and Robert Pattinson, they do great together. They work so well together. I keep saying together. I really should write a script, but I won't. I won't do it. I don't know. As of now, this is kind of my biggest criticism. That might change in the future. But one of the things that kind of bums me out is that the Alfred and Bruce relationship, it's good, but it's not there a lot. It's kind of hollow. You don't get a lot of it. You don't get enough of it to build up to the kind of heartwarming emotional scene that those two have together. They hit the right beats of like, oh, he's helping. Oh, they play off each other. They bicker and banter and whatever. Oh no, Bruce said Alfred's not his father. Oh, that hurt his feelings a little bit. Oh no, Alfred almost died and Bruce was upset. They hit all those, and it's not bad necessarily. I don't think it like completely destroys the movie and undermines anything. It just felt a little unearned to me because we see so little of them together throughout the movie. And as long as the movie is, I can't imagine can't imagine what would have to be cut to like make it work better. I don't know. But that's something I hope they improve upon in the next movie is I really want to see their relationship expand and be more dynamic and present. I also got to say like the ending was way more not climatic but like catastrophic than I was expecting. I mean, Riddler literally floods Gotham and like almost just starts murdering a room full of important people. It's intense, and that last action scene is so good. And I just wasn't really expecting that with the kind of murder mystery vibe of the movie and like the detective aspect of it. I was expecting a kind of a smaller scale, more emotional finale climax thing, which you kind of get with the Catwoman and Falcone thing. But the Riddler thing, that was intense. And I like to see it because it made Riddler seem like much more of a threat. He is just full on a terrorist by the end of that movie, and it's dope. Also, like the whole flooding of Gotham could very potentially lead to the next movie having some very heavily No Man Land influences. I think this movie, whether or not it was intentional, it probably was, but it has some pretty strong Long Halloween vibes and a little bit of Hush. Yeah, I would love to see them kind of expand upon that in the next movie. Like we could see the fallout of Riddler's actions and the whole monologue Batman gives at the end of the movie really feels like they're gonna do some No Man Land stuff next time. Also, something I liked is they did the Thomas Wayne was actually evil thing without actually making Thomas Wayne evil, because that's been a thing the last few years that I'm kind of over at this point. They did it in the Batman Telltale games and it was neat there. In Joker, Thomas Wayne is just straight up an asshole. So that was whatever. And now in the comics, Flashpoint, Thomas Wayne, he murdered Alfred. So, that's messed up. And in this one, he did a bad thing, but he wasn't a bad person, which I really like because I think it's important for Batman to see that. Like, this version of Bruce needs to see that his father wasn't perfect and that he doesn't necessarily have to be either. I don't know if that message really rings through and like through the story and the dialogue and all that stuff, but that's something I kind of picked up from it. So yeah, I liked that. I really thought with all the trailers going in, we were gonna get like mob boss Thomas Wayne, and I didn't want that, so I'm glad they didn't do that. Last big spoiler. Is this too much? Is this too much space at the top of the it doesn't matter. Last big spoiler. Joker. Joker is in the end of this movie. He talks to. I mean, we don't officially know it's Joker, but it's pretty heavily implied that it's Joker. He looks, not that you really see his face all that well, but he looks very heavily scarred, which I think is really interesting. And the voice for this version of Joker, I don't know if like the actor has been announced or if I could even find out who the actor is, but the voice was threw me off in terms of like, oh, is that the voice for the Joker? It's an interesting choice. I don't think it necessarily means it'll be a bad one. I think Matt Reeves will probably knock it out of the park with whatever version of the character he does. If we get that in the next film, or if they want to like save it and kind of build it up a little bit, I wouldn't mind that. I always love to see the Joker. Don't get me wrong, but there's so many good Batman villains that haven't gotten a chance to shine in, the movie world. So let's get some of those in, and then we can do Joker. Yeah, I think that's kind of all I got to say about this movie. Overall, it's like I said, the Batman movie I've been waiting for. It's comic accurate while fitting as a movie really well. It's not perfect by any means, and I definitely think it's not gonna vibe with everyone, but it vibed with me. What can I say? So yeah. Hey, thanks for watching this. I hope this was a little bit more organized than some of my other reviews. I I need to write scripts, but I just don't have the time because I want to get these out in time with the movie. Yeah, that's my excuse. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. If you've seen the movie, comment down below what you thought of it. I'd love to hear some other people's takes and what they loved and what they didn't love. If you haven't seen it, don't do that. Just tell me what you're looking forward to and what you want to see from the movie, and I will spoil it in the I'm kidding. I won't do that. This has been a long outro. I will see you guys in whatever I do next.